Today we're going to talk about how to shift that story from victim to victory. Hey guys, welcome to another Mind Right Monday. I'm your host, Bonnie Kelly, and today we are talking about how to shift that mindset from the victim-minded into the victory-minded, especially when it comes to retelling your story. Now, it's very easy for those of you who are watching to look at me and say, like, Bonnie has never had any trouble, any hardship, any drama in her life. Right. I encourage you, if you want to learn more about me, then go check out my book. TrueToYourCore.com is where you can go pick up a copy and you can learn about my personal transformation from victim to victory. But for the purposes of this video, I really want you to just recognize that everyone has a story. And even though it doesn't look like it, I've struggled with addiction. I was in and out of jail. I was in and out of rehab. I had abandonment issues. I had sexual trauma where I was sexually molested and raped from 8 till I was 21 years old. It's very hard to look at me because I don't embody that anymore. That's no longer a part of my story. But that has not always been the case. In fact, for a long, long time in my personal development journey, I didn't recognize how my story was actually attached to my identity. That all of that hardship, all of that drama was how I defined myself and how I held myself. But what I wasn't realizing is that it kept me in this state of disempowerment. It continued to keep me in a victim mindset, and that means that I was constantly creating more situations to be victimized by, or I would attract heroes to have to save and rescue me but instead of taking personal responsibility. Now, this was actually not my fault. Like in many cases, it's not yours either. We all have things in our life that we were legitimately victimized by. You know, I didn't ask to be sexually abused or to be abandoned or any of these things that I've endured in my life. I didn't ask for that. And especially when you were children. But being defined by that is actually our choice. But that's not something we can really wrestle with until we're willing to identify that we're playing victim and begin to shift and transform that story. So what you have to ask yourself is that when you tell your personal story, your personal tale, does it empower or disempower you? And if the answer is the latter, then you need this video more than anything. All right, so let's dive into a couple tips on how you can transform your victim into victory. The first one is, start having some compassion with yourself for not knowing any better. Now, this is a big one. I mean, a lot of times when we're victim to certain situations, we often blame ourselves. And this happens a lot with any children who have faced any trauma, dysfunction, or a betrayal or abandonment. I mean, I was legitimately victimized by a lot of the sexual violence that I've endured. And for years growing up, believe it or not, I actually blamed myself. I forgot that I was just a child. I forgot that I wasn't at fault because everybody else seemed to be blaming me for these issues, and so I just accepted that as my truth. Well, believe it or not, that's most common with many, many people, and we have to begin to shift or challenge our way out of that, and how you do that is to start having compassion with yourself and recognize that you didn't know any better. You didn't have another choice. Maybe you didn't have the support or the knowledge or the know-how. And when we can just begin to loosen the grip of blame by having a little bit of compassion, we can begin to see a little bit more ease or peace of mind in our hearts. And that is a big step in the transformation for the victim to the victory, is you have to realize that it wasn't all your fault. Ask yourself what else was going on that contributed to your hardship? What else was going on that contributed to your failure or your mistake? And this could even be if you were an adult and you cheated on your spouse. Like, really get in touch with, like, what else was going on to cause you to behave that way? Were you feeling alone and isolated and abandoned? Did you feel that there was no love or lust? Well, not to excuse that behavior, but you really want to recognize what else was going on to begin to allow yourself to move towards compassion so you can then shift into responsibility and then changing that dynamic. Because a lot of times when we're stuck in that victim story, we forget that there's other things to the story that we're not considering in. All right, so this leads me to my next tip, which is Move into accepting what has happened. Now these two kind of go hand in hand, but the first one is about moving into compassion. We need to loosen the grip of blame and 100% responsibility and begin to start taking ownership of your part, but begin to also recognize that there were other things that were going on, maybe consciously or subconsciously, that were undermining and that was sabotaging you as well. But now this next concept is, to transform that story is that you have to get out of the history and bring yourself present. And the best way to do that is to accept that what has happened, happened. What you want to begin to do is ask yourself, how can I learn from this and how can I grow from this? More often than not, we just want to tell the story. We just get stuck in it and it just continues to cycle over and over and over again, and we become a hamster on a wheel. You want to get out of that mental trap, and the best way to do it is accept that this is done. It has happened. I have failed. I have made a mistake. I have cheated. I've done whatever it is that you are struggling with, and you accept that that is done. And now we begin to ask ourselves, how can my life be better from this issue? Like, what can I learn from it, and how can I personally grow? Now, where people get hung up on is that when it becomes to child abuse. And they said, well, Bonnie, what can I learn from this? Well, the truth is you can learn how to be a better parent than what your parents were for you. You can learn about maybe the statistics around sexual trauma around children. Did you know statistically that 1 in 5 girls by the age of 18 have experienced some kind of a sexual advance or dysfunctional encounter? And 1 out of every 7 guys. So by experiencing that, unfortunately, it's made me hyper aware. So I'm going to be a little bit more aware than what my parents were because they didn't endure that when they were growing up. So we begin to start shifting that attention, and we can start recognizing that I'm actually more resilient, I have more empathy, I have more understanding, I have more compassion, I have more patience as a result of that. And so even though I wouldn't wish it upon my enemy, I can be grateful for the things that I've learned and the person that I've become as a result of it. So that's a great way to shift out of that victim, woe is me, and into this like I'm victorious because I'm using this pain as a motivator for good in my life and for those around me. All right, so this leads me to my last and final tip for this week, which is old you, new you. All right, so let me explain this one a little bit. And this is actually my favorite thing to really teach people to do, is that from this moment forward, I want you to adopt that this is the new me moving forward. And that means that if you choose to say today is New Me Day and declarate it, write it on the calendar, celebrate that this is a national holiday for you to step into your power and say that today is the new me, which means that I'm going to own my awesome. I am going to step into the brilliance of who I am and allow that to emanate out of me and those around me. Now, when we finally decide that that's the day you're going to do that, you have to realize that old you thinking is still going to be present. And so we want to begin to discern the difference between old you and new you and begin an inner conversation, an inner dialogue with yourself on asking, is this old me thinking or new me thinking? So how I start that is I make a list. I write out old me. This is what I used to talk about, and this is how I used to tell my story. This is the drama. This is how I used to get sucked into victim and how I had sucked into the woe is me mentality. And then write out the new me. How does the new me want to respond to situations? How does the new me want to tell the story? That is coming from a space of empowerment and from love and joy and compassion. Then once you are out and about and you're having just regular experiences, you can begin to ask yourself when you're sharing with people, when someone asks you, what's your story? Or where did you come from? Or do you still connect with your parents? Or why are you divorced? Whatever the reason is. And you can ask yourself when you're sharing, is this old me sharing or new me sharing? And you really want to start to shift that attention into the new you. By separating the two of these, we can get out of being mad at ourselves for the old dynamic becoming present. It's just an old habit. And the more you practice new you thinking, the stronger your new you will be. All right, so hopefully you've learned something from this video, and hopefully Olive hasn't distracted you too much. My dogs this month and my cat just want to be present in all that we're doing. If you have a personal development question that you want answered on one of these amazing videos, then email us at getinspired@bonniekelly.me, and we'll be happy to put you on the list of epic ideas on how we can share our brilliance to the world. Also, you can friend, fan, follow, tweet, or Snapchat us on all social media platforms. We're here for you every step of the way. Until next time, I'm Bonnie Kelly. Hey guys, if you're ready to step into your best self, to unleash all of your insecurities, all of your self-doubt, all of your limitations, and really step into your brilliance in work, in your finances, in your life, and in your relationships, then you absolutely have to check out my Over It Academy. It starts April 6th, and we're currently in that enrollment process. Now, seats are limited. We only have a handful of spaces left, and so if this is you, and you know you're just over it, you are ready to just be on with this and step into your best life, then you gotta give our office a call or email, and either myself or my team is gonna help you decide if this is the right course for you. So check it out at bonniekelly.me/overit and give us a call. Let's see if this is right for you, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the other side. Until then, I'm Bonnie Kelly.